Right, so that footage I saw last night is absolutely genius. I think Drew Goddard is a brilliant person. I love how he shoots 35 millimeters. Same with Luca doing Suspiria, which is cool. But that one shot we saw was unbelievable. It's 27 takes, 8 months of preparation, where you're walking through that hallway, looking into each room as people are doing different things. As actors, that's obviously a choreographed dance, but it's one shot. I was wondering, just for you as an actor, are you aware of like having to move out of the way of the camera or the track? And for you, when we're not seeing you on screen, are you just waiting to come back into the shot? Can you talk about that dance as an actor?
It's like being in a little play.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're very aware. There's an intense technical aspect to it, because not only are you trying to hit marks and be in the right spot, and there are reflections to deal with, but the camera is a 9-headed beast, because there's a focus puller and a dolly puller and there's so many other parts of that have to all work in concert. So it's somewhere between like a little one-act play and like playing a symphony. Everyone has to do their part, and if one person does it wrong, it's dissonant in some way. So it was a super fun day that we did basically the whole day.
Yeah.
Like,
it was beautiful, I thought. It was,
Yeah.
I mean, Seamus McGarvey, the DP, this is the second time I worked with him, and he's so poetic with his shots, and this one is just, that scene is so special, I think, and to have everyone separated in rooms and then really working together and listening so much and waiting and having to really be on it, and then sometimes something will get fucked up and you have to start over and you feel frustrated because you were really there, and it's about patience, and when you get it and everyone's gotten it, it's like a little high, and it is like a little mini play.
As you said, it's like it shows the level of kind of detail and specificity that Drew really wanted to bring this whole film.
Yeah.
Because there's a million ways you could have shot that scene.
You could have stitched it in the walls if you wanted to.
Should have done all this other stuff, but he didn't do that. He chose to do the more elegant, kind of interesting way.
With Cynthia singing live, though, I thought that was interesting, because Drew was saying that everyone had to be super quiet. Like, Jeff would have to be pulled, like he would be in the boards and he would get back up and they'd bring him quietly over to his next moment.
Yeah.
How quiet did you have to be when you walked? Because your specific shot is very there's a lot going on, and I won't give it away, but is there like a tiptoeing aspect to what you're doing to make sure you don't step on anything she's singing live? It's crazy.
Yeah, well, the preparation outside the door was one thing, and then that was all very quiet, but then once we're in the room, it was kind of like mayhem for a second, and then when you go back, then you quiet down and kind of freeze and live in your moment.
So cool, it really is. Now, one thing I love about this film is just the idea of seeing these different characters check into the hotel, and I'm sure this is something that's just kind of a nerdy thing, but I would love to see some of your characters check into this hotel and kind of see what they would do on this evening. What do you think your Suspiria character would do if she was checked in? I know it's a weird question, but if she were to go to this hotel, what do you think would happen?
I don't know. Probably.
There will be blood.
Yeah, probably
Paul Thomas
some
Anderson.
wild behavior.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's an animal.
Your Mad Men character, what would he do there?
Drink a lot.
Yeah. He would be there for not.
He'd be chilling.
Yeah, he would enjoy himself.
Yeah. One thing I love about this movie and what you're doing with Suspiria is the 35 millimeter aspect of it. And working on film, and there's a great moment in that shot where you walk to a film camera and do something with it. What is it about film as an actor? I mean, I know that you're performing, you're a character, but does it affect it all the way you perform? Because it's rolling, it's not digital, you don't have a limited amount of time. Does that counter into how you're performing?
I like the just the feeling of a camera rolling, that you can kind of hear it a little bit, and to know there's a sort of timeliness, I think, and there's a life to it that's not, when you're working with digital, you just, there's somewhere in you know that you can go and go and go, and even though on this project we had the luxury of having a lot of film, so we could go again, and often did a lot of times. But sometimes it's just, it makes you feel like you're making a real movie, especially when it's a period piece.
Yeah.
You feel like you're,
Nothing beats that grain. And before I go without me out, but just real fast, since we did talk at TAG about the Capitals, just your thoughts on the win. I know, because we're gonna play this as a follow-up as to what you said, because you kind of said you wanted to see DC get a cup. So when they won, what were you feeling?
Well, like I said, I'm very happy for former Blue TJ Oshie, but also it was. I just felt that they were going to win. I mean, Ovechkin went to another level, that whole team went to another level.
Another level.
You were all in.
We were
Super
texting
fan.
about it
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
she
was on
She would-
FaceTime.
I was just
I was
like,
"Get
stop!
'em,
I'm watching the
get
game.
'em." And then they went and they got him,
Yeah.
and then they swiped it into the
They
thing.
did.
That moment was
The-
amazing. And it was shot 35 millimeter.
And they
Yeah.
shot it.
They shot the game on 35. It was
Yeah.
all one shot.
It has to be.
Drew
kind
stepped
of.
in.
Yeah.
It's all
It has to be. It's a game.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. Really a pleasure to talk to you.
Cheers,
Thank you
bud.
for nerding out me about the film. It's so cool. The shot we saw was so. In the footage we saw last night, which was mind blowing, we had this amazing 5-minute single tracking shot of John Hamm walking and looking into each room. I was curious for you as actors, since it is one take, it was done 27 times.
Yes.
What are you doing when you're not on camera? I know you're singing.
I'm
We
singing.
see you initially, and then we come back to you. You're in a different position. As actors, how did that dance go for you as an actor?
Well, for me, it really was. I was singing for the whole time. So when you come away from camera, it's not that they start and put in pre-record. That's me singing the whole entire time. So the first time we did it, I just wanted to take a look at what was happening, where, so that I could try and make the song almost match with what was happening in the room.
Yeah.
So that I knew where to make the slip ups if I was making slip ups. Just like it was about making the song go with what was happening, I guess.
Is 27 times hard on your vocal cords? Is that something that you were worried about?
Well, it should be hard on your vocals. It probably is, but I take great care of my voice, so
Yeah.
I know how to look after it to be able to do that. Yeah.
And when we see you initially, when John looks in and we see you kind of like pulling up those boards, and then we come back to you, you're sitting somewhere else.
Yeah.
What was your situation like when the camera left your viewpoint?
Well, so much of making movies, it's like pulling off a magic trick,
Yeah.
and this is a good example of that kind of thing, where you're working with all these different people and they have to get everything in sync to pull off the illusion, really, And so you just, working on all those little details, and you're getting, tips from Drew, our director, now just wait just a little bit longer before you do that, or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
And you obviously have made so many films in your career. I was curious, that shot is obviously amazing. Do you have a shot looking back over the films you've made that was just blew your mind? Like when you saw it and you did it as an actor? What was it like?
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm thinking of Vittorio Storaro and Tucker, working with Coppola. They had some really elaborate, and that's challenging for an actor because you have a shot that maybe takes, 3, 4 minutes,
Yeah.
very involved, hitting all these marks. And then to recock that and reset it takes 10 or 15
right,
minutes.
right.
So how do you hold that thing and to make it seem like, oh, it's fresh? It's
You're
challenging.
on the skates where you're in the skating rink.
Oh,
That was one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites.
That's cool.
We were talking about Heaven's Gate.
Yeah. I was curious for you. I asked you this last night about projecting your voice
Yeah.
because you obviously in The Color Purple. My wife saw it. She cried. She said it was amazing.
Thank you.
So you talk about the idea of singing on stage
Yeah.
with a live audience
Yeah.
versus singing in a film when it has to be quiet on the set. How
Yeah.
different for you is that?
I project anyway, so I try and I think what happens is it changes with the song I'm singing,
Yeah.
because of the songs in The Color Purple. Some of them require me to be as small as this, and then some of them require me to really belt the whole thing out. But with the '60s style, it isn't really about yelling that much. It's something a bit. There's a feeling to it that needs a little something different. It's more like you need a soulfulness to it, so it doesn't need too much like push or force. You still need to project so you can hear everything. I think projection is different to volume for me, so I still project. I just make sure that the sound is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Jeff, random question for you. I'm growing out my first beard.
Yeah.
You are the king
Beautiful
of the
beard.
Look at your beard. You're the
Your
ultimate-
beard, man.
You're the ultimate beard guy. Do you have tips? Because I'm like going through a phase where it's scraggly, it's itching. What, Jeff Bridges? What is your advice on growing a beard?
Well, you know what I would think? It's for the other side of your head. It's the top of your head. What I think you would look great in, and this was my favorite haircut. Shaved that thing, man, bald. With that beard, wouldn't he look cool?
I think you would. Yes, you would.
And
yeah.
and it's so wonderful, the bald
Like a
thing,
buzz
because
cut
you
almost?
get the slick thing, but then the first day after the first shave, you get a shark kind of feel.
Yeah.
And then you go
And it grows out
and
like
then you
that.
go to the velvet.
Yeah.
You know, that. And
Yeah.
you would love it. Will
Yeah,
you do
that
that
would
for
be
me?
great.
I will do it for you. Before
Okay.
I go, last question. If the dude checked into this hotel what would happen? How would
He
that
would
go
meet me.
down?
Oh yeah.
I think we would still, something tells me
there
that we
you
would still
go.
meet.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
come in there and say, "Where's Cynthia?"
I need to see this happen. All right, so last night we were discussing the incredible shot that we watched in the footage we saw with John Hamm walking down the hallway, peering into each window. Talk about how many takes that was, the months of prep. You mentioned 8 months of prep, and then also how you remove the reflection from the window. We discussed this, but I have to hear you talk about it again.
Yeah, so I knew early on, it was one of the first images in my mind when I started thinking about this movie, was this shot. And I didn't know how we were going to achieve it. I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, but we started working on it probably 8 months out in terms of storyboarding it and then developing it. I hired Seamus McGarvey for many reasons, because he's one of the greatest DPs on the planet. But one of the things he's incredible at is he did the shot in Atonement that is very famous. He's very good with complicated camera work and also very emotional camera work. At the same time, you never lose the emotion, which is important, because a flashy camera shot means nothing if you're not in it emotionally. So I needed to balance those two things. And so we just needed to practice. It was really hard technically, because the shot sort of evolves as John Hamm is seeing things through glass, and I wanted John's reflections to be in the glass so that you could see him. And you can see bits of that in the trailer. If people just watch the trailer, you can see him. And what you realize is that if you can see John's reflection, I have a camera behind John, you're going to see the camera also,
Yeah.
which proved to be incredibly challenging. So we had to it became geometry. We had to really figure out exactly where he was at every second of the shot, and so that we could have the right angle. And we put the glass so that we could change the glass very subtly so that the angle would catch John's reflection but not the camera. It was a whole MIT level math problem that took months and months to figure out.
So you're 27 takes into this, obviously.
Yeah.
We see the 27th take in the movie we're watching, which
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. But one thing I thought was fascinating was we discussed the quote-unquote imperfections of Cynthia's singing, because it's absolutely beautiful to watch. But like, instead of cutting if she had a slip-up,
Yeah.
you wanted to keep that in. I thought that was such a fascinating thing, because it makes it feel more real and natural. Can you talk about that as a filmmaker?
Yeah, look, Cynthia Erivo plays a character named Darlene Sweet, who is a lounge singer, and I knew for the movie I needed her to sing live, and I wanted her to sing live. I didn't want to pre-record, I didn't want to lip sync. Just, you lose something when you're doing that. So I needed one of the best singers on the planet to play this role, and boy, Cynthia is exactly that and more. Frankly, one of the problems with Cynthia is she was so pitch perfect every time, you didn't believe that it was live, because you're like, no human being could do that. So after about take 20, in the 20s, I started to say to her, Cynthia, I need you to mess up a little bit. I need you to show me these rough edges. I need, so that we can see. So like, if you forget something, lean into it. Repeat, take time, mess up. Those mess ups tell the audience this is really happening, because you're almost too perfect. So it's fun to sort of pull her back from perfection.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, last night we were discussing 35 millimeter and also Michael Giacchino. I think those two things are just like the perfect match. I mean, every time you see a film shot on film and you have Giacchino's score going with Abrams, obviously with Star Trek and things like that,
Right.
It's amazing. But talk about the choice of film, because it's going away, but still the greatest filmmakers of our time, you guys, Spielberg, all those guys are still shooting on film, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, look, there's a beauty that the chemical process of film captures
Yep.
that is you cannot capture digitally. You can replicate it, and certainly there are beautiful films that are. I'm not like for me, every project determines how you shoot it. Start with
Like Fincher does well digitally,
and
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's beautiful films, and I will shoot digitally too, depending on the project. But for this movie, I really wanted to evoke that classic, the emotional memory of the 60s, whether you lived through it or you've watched movies of that time. They were all shot on film. It felt like the right time. I wanted that level of distance that comes from grain and what the colors can do. The movie has a very aggressive color palette, and I knew that only film could capture it the way I wanted it to be captured. And so I said to studios, I wrote this on spec, and I said to studios when I took it to them, don't buy this if we can't shoot it on film. Don't buy it. It's not worth me. It was that important to me that we shoot it on film. I would rather not make this film than not have film at my disposal. And luckily the studios all got it. I think studios sort of understand it. When you get away from the Excel document, studios understand the power of film.
Yeah, they really do. I had so many questions for you to wrap me up, but thank you so much.
It goes fast.
The whole Cabin in the Woods thing, just the peering in